Every January, we see this incredible surge of human ambition, almost a physical force.
It is. The world fills with the promise of self-improvement.
Gyms are packed. There are new journals waiting for insights, new apps being downloaded with this desperate hope for transformation.
But that energy, as we all know, is acutely short-lived.
It is. By February, the noise just recedes. The world goes back to being quiet.
And the data on this cycle is, well, it's sobering. We see that something like 92% of people who set these ambitious goals, they fail to follow through.
And the critical point here, I think, is that this failure isn't because of a lack of desire. It's not about intelligence.
Most people genuinely want to achieve what they set out to do. The problem lies in a kind of structural friction. It's what psychologists call the intention-action gap.
So let's define that. The intention-action gap is, at its core, a failure of translation.
The failure of communication.
Between the planning brain and the acting brain. You have this detailed, wonderful intention to exercise or to write, but the two parts just aren't connecting.
And that's the core conflict, because intention and action exist on entirely different planes.
Intention is comfortable. It lives in the future.
It costs you nothing in the present. And crucially, it lets you adopt the identity of the person you want to be without any of the immediate discomfort. You feel like a healthy, disciplined person for free.
While action is exclusively in the present, the brutal present.
It demands energy right now. It demands discomfort and a kind of relentless, unglamorous consistency.
So intention gives you that dopamine hit of imagined change.
And action demands the actual discipline of real transformation.
Which explains why we feel so good just thinking about change, even before we've taken a single step. This leads us to, I think, the first major psychological hurdle.
The brain's very peculiar habit of rewarding the intention as if it were actual progress.
It's an internal trap.
It is. The moment you declare a goal, you tell your friends, you buy the new equipment, your brain gives you a little hit of completion. You've mentally solved the problem.
We're getting the reward before we do the work.
Precisely. The term for it is symbolic self-completion. We mistake the satisfaction of defining the goal for the movement toward achieving it.
Can you give us an example?
Think about decluttering a garage. The moment you buy all the storage bins, you print out the labels, you feel a huge psychological lift.
You've become the kind of person who will have an organized garage.
And the brain gives you credit for it. That feeling of relief is almost the same neurochemical feedback you'd get from actually finishing the job.
This helps explain a really provocative idea, that talking too much about your goals can actually weaken your ability to execute them.
Because the talk, the declaration, satisfies the brain prematurely. If the goal is big, discussing it provides this low-cost, continuous stream of validation.
Why go through the difficulty of the action when the reward is right there in the conversation?
And the planning itself can become a very sophisticated form of procrastination. We feel productive while we're making the spreadsheets or reading the books about the topic.
But that activity is actually replacing the real difficult work.
It's a displacement activity. And a related, maybe counterintuitive point is that the more detailed and perfect an intention becomes, the easier it can be to put off the action.
The search for the perfect plan.
It's a delay tactic. It satisfies our need for control while letting us avoid the messy business of actually starting.
Which brings us to what some call the motivation myth. When people fail by, say, mid-February, they usually say their motivation just vanished.
They ran out of steam.
But if the problem isn't the lack of desire, then we have to reframe that failure. What if motivation doesn't disappear? What if comfort just expands?
That's a foundational insight into our behavior. The brain is, at its core, a machine for conserving energy and avoiding uncertainty.
So any new habit, any real challenge, registers as a threat.
It triggers resistance automatically. We should expect it. The brain is just trying to be efficient.
So we don't fail in some big, spectacular flameout. We fail quietly.
Slowly. Through a series of very rational-sounding micro-decisions.
Those little thoughts. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve a break.
Those aren't just excuses. They aren't signs of laziness. They are deeply rooted self-protection mechanisms designed to steer us back to the path of least resistance, back to comfort.
This leads to the ambition paradox, which I find fascinating. We assume a bigger goal has more pull, but the analysis suggests the opposite. Highly ambitious goals generate stronger internal resistance.
And not because they're impossible, it's because the goal fundamentally challenges your current identity.
Your self-image.
Exactly. If you intend to become a marathon runner, but your internal story is one of comfortable leisure, the goal itself creates a kind of identity crisis. The action required is a direct threat to the current you.
That friction, that feeling of fighting yourself with every step,
Yeah.
that must be the identity misalignment.
It is. If your goal is to be an early rising writer, but you see yourself as a night owl, then sitting at a desk at 6 a.m. feels wrong. It feels like you're acting like you're wearing a costume.
So behavior change struggles when the goal conflicts with that self-image. The new habit just feels alien.
And that's why people quit when the initial motivation fades. The actions aren't integrated into their sense of self.
Which means we need a dramatic shift in the question we ask. Not, what do I want to achieve?
But who am I becoming?
Because sustainable action comes from identity, not just ambition.
If the action aligns with the person you believe you are, the friction decreases. You don't have to force yourself to go to the gym. You just go, because that's what a healthy person does.
But if the action contradicts your self-image, you have to constantly use that very limited resource, willpower.
Which brings us to strategy. Willpower is, frankly, dramatically overrated as a tool for long-term change.
It's a finite resource.
Like a battery. And relying on it alone guarantees that you will eventually fail, especially when life gets stressful or you get tired. When that battery drains, the default settings, the old comfortable habits, just take over again.
So long-term success can't be based on some kind of heroic inner strength.
The alternative is intelligent design, environment design. It's the silent, relentless force that we so often overlook.
Our physical and digital surroundings.
They dictate our behavior far more than we realize. If your environment is perfectly built to support your old habits, your new intentions don't stand a chance.
This reframes success completely. It's not about forcing yourself to do things. It's about engineering the situation so the desired action is the easiest one to take.
The path of least resistance. Consider reading more. If your phone is charging on your nightstand and the book is on a shelf downstairs,
The phone is going to win every time. The environmental cue is just too powerful.
intelligent design means making the good habit visible and easy, and the bad habit invisible and difficult.
So if you want to practice guitar, it shouldn't be, in his case, in the closet.
It should be on a stand in the middle of the living room. Just removing that tiny bit of friction is often enough to bypass the brain's resistance.
The environment becomes the cue, and you're just moving through the system you've built. It almost bypasses conscious decision-making.
Success becomes a result of that design, not just strength or moral character. It's a far more predictable system than relying on a feeling, like motivation, which is inherently volatile.
And to overcome that internal resistance, which is always triggered by the perceived size of a task, the solution is, well, it's counterintuitive. It's to think radically smaller.
Momentum is the critical force, not intensity. The brain resists large efforts, but it accepts small movements.
Motion.
Especially if that motion is so small, it doesn't trigger the fear response or the energy conservation mechanisms. A goal to work out every day is overwhelming.
But a commitment to simply put on my shoes and step outside, that's non-threatening. It's almost absurdly easy to complete.
The key is to make that first step so small that failing to do it feels ridiculous. If your goal is to write a book, don't commit to 2 hours. Commit to writing 200 words.
The point isn't the 200 words themselves.
The point is to show up, to prove to yourself through action that you are a person who writes every day. You're building the identity.
And that consistency is what sustains the change. It turns the goal from an event into a routine, from something you have to do into something you are.
And this leads to a truth that's often missed in our search for dramatic breakthroughs. Consistency fundamentally beats intensity. Every single time.
Intensity burns out that willpower battery we talked about.
Well, consistency just slowly, quietly shifts your identity.
All of this gives us the framework to see why the traditional New Year's resolution system is so fragile. It's not that people are weak. The system itself is structurally flawed.
It relies entirely on arbitrary things. A symbolic date on a calendar. The expectation of a sudden personality upgrade at midnight.
And a temporary, volatile burst of motivation. It's a system that's almost designed to fail.
And real growth just doesn't follow a calendar. It's iterative, it's adaptive, and it's usually very unglamorous. It's not an event you schedule, it is a system you maintain.
So the better question to ask is not, what's my resolution this year?
But instead, what system am I willing to maintain when the enthusiasm is gone? Focusing on that maintainable system, the environment, the small actions, that is the difference between an intention and an action.
As we close out this deep dive, it seems the intention-action gap is less of a personal flaw and more of a signal. It pinpoints the exact border where our comfort ends and where real growth has to begin.
And bridging that gap requires more than just force. It requires a heightened awareness of these psychological traps, a true alignment with a desired identity, strategic environment design, and a measure of self-compassion for how slow and non-linear this process truly is.
So perhaps the goal isn't to create some grand future resolution tied to January 1st. Perhaps it's just to focus on making one small promise that you can keep. Not tomorrow, but right now. Action doesn't wait for a new year. It begins with the very next small decision.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.